Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view Money Morphin Power Rangers Season Dose, episodes 47 through 52. This is to go on and wrap up Season 2, so I feel very nostalgic while talking about Season 2 that I need to remind people that Season 1 also exists, because this is Season 2. I go on to look at Season 1 and realize how much it was to cater to a certain taste of people. If you were to go on and like Megazords, man, is there a lot of Megazord stuff in there. And there's also a story arc of Megazord. We would go on to also have, if you like the Green Ranger, there's a lot in there. If you were to go on and like Billy and Kimberly episodes, there's a lot in there. If you were to go on and just like other just certain Rangers, there's eventually every once in a while an episode or two of all the other Rangers. So with Season 1, there's also a lot of things to laugh about it for the wrong reasons. And for Season 2, I think that this season was to be a season of transition because they were more and more starting to realize how they really had to go on and create more original stuff. We have Lord Zed, who's an original character. They had to go on and adjust Rita and bringing her back, and went on to need to change how she looked, obviously, for the show. And with a lot of original stuff, there is also some problems with this season. For this season, for how different it is to the first, there's a lot of times where I think for the first season, they had a lot of times in the command center and juice bar, where in the second season, they kind of push away from that and go into more parks, or they go into more of the high school locations. We go on into Season 2, and we really start to miss a lot of things. And when they finally do bring them back, we're like, oh, hey, yeah, finally they brought back Ernie, or they brought back Rita, or they did this, or they did that. That kind of reminds us of stuff of Season 1. There is that, wow, isn't this nice? And it kind of reminds us of what happened prior. We go on also into Season 2, and there is much more of like a team focus rather than mostly individuals. If you really want to go on and know much about Aisha, Adam, or Rocky, you would really have to go on and you would have to watch like the whole entire season to get a good gist of who these characters are. I say Rocky because eventually we'll get there when I talk about Best Ranger, Worst Ranger. There's going to be a reason I have to say that in that manner, because if anything, it's kind of foreshadowing how my voting is going to go. So we go on here and we have Rita in the first season be a villain. Rita's to go on, and yeah, it's sometimes she has to push her duties over on Goldar sometimes, or even Babu and Squad. But eventually, Rita goes on and uses her spells to eventually come up with Green Rangers and come up with well thought out plans, like when finding out that the Megazord's weakness is to have an eclipse to shut out the sun because the Megazord runs on solar power. Wow, what a strategic pull there. So we go on and we eventually find that in Rita in Season 1, regardless of her being annoying, she is eventually a credible threat. Lord Zed eventually, in first outings, it seems we look at him, it's like, wow, like this villain is visually amazing looking, and at first it seems that he is to have well thought out plans. Like, wow, what a difference this makes. But then all of a sudden we start to see Lord Zed start to lose. Once Lord Zed starts to lose, we really find out that this character's wind has completely been taken out of his sails. We find out that Lord Zed is to say that he has a plan so he doesn't have to come up with one. Lord Zed, throughout his entire season, would randomly come up with monsters or just chuck a bunch of monsters out there, hoping that that would be his solution. Nothing is to really be well thought out, and if anything, for how really Zed would win these things would really have to be by real luck instead of anything else. And how really there are to be just very small victories instead of him ever going on and winning the war, because again, these things are not to be ever well thought out. And then Rita comes back into the fold. Rita comes back in the fold with plans, but the plans are to go on and just be like, okay, like not as tide changing as in the first season. It's to just go on and really just end up being like, well, hey, like Rita's plans are probably a lot more stronger than Zed's, to where they're to need a whole story arcing thing for the Rangers to beat. So that's good. But other than that, yeah, like we go on to feasibly have it where we have to realize that the villains are just very disappointing in this second season. They really are. They're the most disappointing thing. Just it's very lazy writing. It's very just like it feels like these villains are just edited down for time. And it's a lot of talk, it's empty threats. It gets really annoying way faster than you would think. So we now go on into talking about the Power Rangers, because if anything, like the command center compared to the first season is less is more, and I thought that was nice. Even when Alpha does go on and become evil in this season, I was like, okay, cool. Like this is a nice change of pace, and it also really helps out the episodes. We would go on to need to talk about the Rangers here. So I'm going to go on and push into Best Ranger, Worst Ranger so we can get this done. So, Best Ranger, Worst Ranger for this season. First off, I will go on to say is Adam. Shockingly enough, I think I am to always just love wild card characters that can be kind of used everywhere. And I think Adam is honestly that guy. And you can go on and have Adam troubleshooting with Billy, and it seems that like uh, they're working very well together. Adam is to also be in the mix at some points with Tommy, or to be in the mix with Rocky, and you buy all of that. We also go on to have Adam, that is to have Goldar's vice versa, and it's to be a really fun episode that I think is to be probably a standout of this season, but it's to obviously not be the best episode of it, of course. But Adam goes on and he has some suspicions about a girl, so much so that he starts dating her, and come to find out that suspicion comes to find out that the girl that Adam's with turns into a baddie, turns into Scorpina. And Adam goes on to beat Scorpina so well that she never returns for the rest of the season. If anything, if that's not a glowing recommendation of why Adam should go on to be the best Ranger this season, then I don't know what is. I don't know what is. Scorpina never comes back. She never does. They bring her back, just... Where does she go? So, we have Adam also that, like, yeah, he works well with others, and he's a romantic at heart. We have the whole romantic thing not be played up so much so like how Zach was to go on to be so focused and distracted by it, even to his own detriment. And Zach would go on and be dating Angela instead of going off and morphing with his friends. So, yeah, feasibly, you have to go on and understand why I chose this. Uh, if not to just say that maybe I have a very biased opinion about Adam, anyways. But then after that, the first and second ones were honestly very close. They really were. Uh, right after Adam, I'll go with Aisha. Aisha to me took some going for this season to really just be like, yeah, Aisha is really good, right? She is? Yeah, all right. Like, it took me a while. It took some cooking. It took some brewing. It took some Aisha, yeah. It took some time there. So Aisha goes on, and she is to, of course, uh, give us some backstory with Friends Forever. How she is to have had a friend in Stone Canyon and is to realize that this old friend of hers is to go on and face off against Kimberly. And that was a really good episode. And I think that better showcased Aisha than it honestly did Kimberly. Even though there was that moment where Kimberly does talk to Sean of like, well, yeah, I can relate to you because of my um, my parents' divorce. That also gives Kimberly some points, which I'll have to point out when eventually I get to her, and I'll get to her. So we go on, and we have Aisha, and she goes on even in these episodes, and she lends to helping them out. She does that whole drawing thing in the Storybook Ranger thing, which I'll get more in depth about. Aisha will go on and eventually just lend certain things to this team throughout a good, probably second half of the season, but still it'll be there. And we're going to see just how well used that she gets, and that's the thing I just liked about Aisha. Next, after Aisha. So I think I have to go on and be fair, and I have to remember that Jason, Trini, and Zach do exist. And I have to say that Jason is probably a better leader than Tommy, specifically in the second season. Because if you look at the first season, Jason is a mess. Uh, but in the second season, Jason gets a lot better. And I mean a lot better to where I'm like, who is this guy? Where does he come from? Who's that guy? So Jason, I think, would go on and end up before Tommy because really of how passionate he is about his friends and how really what I could have grabbed from the early parts of the season from memory of which that I barely do have. Yeah, Jason really becomes a leader instead of being guided by other people to make certain decisions. And I liked I like that a lot about Jason. So I will fairly say that Jason probably deserves this spot right here. And then I will go on and I will say Tommy. Tommy, honestly, in this season is the most entertaining Ranger. We'll go on and we'll have at one point where Tommy delivers the finger poke of doom to the putties, of which that I will reference in whatever episode that ends up being. I don't remember. But Tommy will also go on and, even in Best Man for the Job, deliver a lot of good comedy with Kimberly at his side. And so Tommy in this season is just a lot of fun to watch. We even would go on, even in Best Man for the Job, and have Tommy fighting the putties in Best Man for the Job. And it's really interesting. It's really exciting. And we would go on to have, I think we have to bring up Return of the Green Ranger, where Tommy fights off against Tom, and there is quite a lot of times where a lot of things are riding on Tommy in the season, where all the other Rangers have been taken out, and Tommy is the only one left. That happens quite a lot within this second season, so again, that is the reason why he's so high on this list. Then after Tommy, we would go on to Kimberly. Kimberly, it took down to watching these episodes to finally figure out where the heck to put Kimberly. Because for Kimberly, I was like, what happened to her? Besides her endless, and I mean endless, I swear to God, if Kimberly says mall one more goddamn time, I am going to lose it. But besides that, Kimberly within these specific episodes was a lot of fun to watch. Kimberly is going on and really tit for tatting really well with Tommy in Best Man for the Job. It's really like some good balance there. The Storybook Rangers, we have Kimberly who is to tie back in her father telling her this story, and that is the reason why she really needs it, and Tommy ends up getting it for her. And I liked how they connected Kimberly with needing this book with obviously her father because divorce and everything like that. So it has sentimental value to her, and I liked that adding into the story. It made it feel that we in our minds were thinking like, well, yeah, Kimberly is still thinking about her parents separating. So I liked that. I really did. We also have Kimberly that ends up getting time buttholed back in time to the 1980s. Kimberly, it seems to be the last defense against Needlenose and Golar, and conveniently, she is to be able to morph and realize that there is Alpha and Zordon during this time period. Kimberly goes on to teleport to the command center, and she goes on to need to get power coins to give to her ancestors' best friends. I'll go on and I'll explain more about these episodes a little bit later, but if anything, you'll get the gist right now. So, after that, after Kimberly, I would have to go with Billy in all honesty. It kind of really took a while to really figure out where exactly to put Billy for how high he was in first season to now how low he has sunk into season 2, sadly. It's true, but it's sad. In all honesty, like, I would have to look at what I've kind of already said about Adam. Billy had gone on to do the whole prison hunt with Adam in that one episode. Billy had gone on to make the Bukala escape ship and had that heartbreaking, like, I'll never forget you, emotional thing that Billy was to go on and have with this quick friend that he made, Bukala, which was just a discount Larago, let's be honest. And Billy goes on to eventually, by Blue Ranger Gone Bad, not only lose his glasses, but then he's getting buff. He is getting buff. He is legit, like, wearing tank tops and he's strutting his stuff. It's like, yeah, you know I'm good. You know I'm muscly. You know I've beefed up. So, and everybody's like, wow. Everybody's noticing Billy's body, especially from how we've gone on to see him through a good chunk of the season. He's wearing overalls and he's wearing a lot of clothes that don't show off his body very well. Now we're going on and seeing Billy's body, like, wow, all right. Billy's gotten in shape. Billy's bench pressing, and yeah, it's his fake Billy, but still, either way. So, within the ninth inning here, we also go on to have the very last episode of the season called Billy or Blue Ranger Gone Bad. And this goes on to have Billy find out that a woman named Violet is making a statue of him. Seems a little creepy, but regardless, it seems that since Violet was to go on and make a statue of Billy, Billy's like, well, hey, this girl really does like me, and I could probably like her, so something can come out of this. But the only thing that will really come out of it will Billy being grabbed by a vine and being shoved into the dark dimension where he's being held imprisoned, and fake Billy will appear from that statue that Goldar and Babuin Squad go on to cast a spell or throw a thing upon to make the fake Billy appear, and fake Billy starts wreaking havoc upon Billy's life. Going on, and this is to very much remind us of the previous Billy episode where he turns evil, obviously, because Billy had gone on and turned evil once before, and his task was to try to go on and retrieve the Dragon Dagger. Whereas in the episode here, we go on and we have Billy who's trying to take all the Rangers' morphers and all the Rangers' communicators, so that way they will be defenseless. Tommy doesn't really trust Billy, and he wants to keep his communicator. Man, this is the one time where Tommy actually does have a communicator on him, because look at season 1 where he would always have his communicator in his bag, so easily to not have it on him. And then he would have to tell us, oh man, I don't have my communicator on me. Yeah, that was season 1 Tommy. But now, in season 2, Tommy is so easily to hold on to his communicator. Isn't that weird? Change of events. So, the further and further that people are to start asking Billy questions, the more Tommy gets suspicious of Billy, goes on to call out to Zordon to just double check on things, and there they find the ruse of fake Billy. The villains realize their jig is up, so they have to kind of put plans in place. And eventually the episode plays out the way it is. I'll get in more detail, but I think I've kind of already done that. So with that said, I've almost described almost every single one of these episodes, most of the case anyways. So really, I think the only point that we really have to go on and honestly break down is really what is to be the best episodes of this season, surprisingly. So those episodes end up being, surprisingly, Z-Waves, The Green Dream, The Wannabe Rangers. This is all kind of recapping. We've heard these episodes over and over and over again. I apologize. To ever go on and really describe them at this point, like, Z-Waves is basically the zombie apocalypse episode, which is really cool. And also has a really interesting monster that has like the radio voice. It's a lot of fun to check that episode out. The Green Dream, I don't quite really remember. Any of the stuff that probably has green in it, I probably don't exactly remember, except for Return of the Green Ranger, because I had seen that recently. The Wannabe Ranger is the Primator episode. It's the mirror match. It's a really fun episode where we go on and have the Primator or Primitor go on and like become people, and you obviously can know that it's the Primitor or Primator because he's going on and he's doing like monkey things, and so it's like, we figured it out. It's a really fun episode. I really enjoy it. Green No More. I want to say I have some vague memory about that. Is that the one where all the Rangers are to lose their power coins, and then the Green Ranger has to come back, and it's that cool fountain shot or that cool like I'm trying to figure out what that episode is. Let me know in the comments below. The Sangue Dardo. The Sangue Dardo teams up both pink and green together. Obviously, this has to be on the list. It's a very rare occurrence. And how much I would go on and talk about in the season 1 when Tommy and Trini were together. Tommy and Kimberly together, great. We would have the episode going on and being about music, and that was really cool. I liked that. Missing Green. I'm missing really quite the understanding of this episode. I'd have to get really definitely for some of these get a refresher on them. Return of the Grid Ranger. Plus, a lot of these things happened in the early parts of this season, and feasibly, there have been months of gap from me going on and reviewing these. So, yeah, just like it is what it is. So, Return of the Green Ranger, of course, is to be Tom versus Tommy. The Rangers go back in time. It's a really good story arc. I really did like it. Best man for the job, again, besides its political and gender problems that will probably arise within this episode, and people may not go on to like that because of that, I thought that this episode was really funny. I don't care if people are to be probably offended by it or whatever. To me, I am to go on and just say that I just had a good, fun time with this episode, and that's all that matters to me. Golar's vice versa. This is the Adam Scorpina episode where, again, she beats her and she never comes back. Yeah. White Light. We would go on to realize that this is an episode that has to just be on this list because it has to be. I don't think there's a lot that really goes into this. I've probably complained about this before, that it's like, well, yeah, it has some significance to this second season, but there's not enough going on into it. I think a lot of it is to clickbait you into, hey guys, we're coming up with a new Ranger, and that's about it. It's a speculation of who it's going to be. It's a lot of that. And if anything, funny enough, original plans were to not have it be Jason David Frank. They were having another guy ending up being the White Ranger, but they changed their minds because they realized how popular Tommy really was. So, and that guy became the guy from VR Troopers. Because originally, Tommy, Jason David Frank, was in VR Troopers. Anyways, if anything, if you go on and you watch an interview with a guy that was in VR Troopers, he'll state that story, the blonde-headed guy. Anyways, after that, we have some honorable mentions of The Wedding and Friends Forever. Friends Forever is such a good episode. I wish I could have gone on and figured out a way to fit it on here. It's so saddened to me that it's not on here, but it honestly should be. So anyways, like, I feel that, like, I'm missing something here. That I probably should have gone on and stated something about this second season. I kind of broke down the episodes, but, like, not well good enough. But if anything, like, I'm going to break down the episodes anyways. I honestly did go on, and I really did like these episodes in their own certain specific ways. Best Man for the Job was really fun. Storybook Rangers Part 1 and 2. I have probably reviewed this at some point in the past, I'm sure. And so I don't know exactly if which one was better or not at this point. But I would turn to this. We would go on to have a Power Rangers Dino Thunder episode called Drawn into Danger. And you would have to go on and look into that old review of me talking about Storybook Rangers before, or Drawn into Danger, and see if I was to go on and debate whether or not was better. I think it was Drawn into Danger, I think was a better episode. from Dino Thunder. But if you are to like Storybook Ranger, you may also like Drawn into Danger in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Also, that has Tommy in it, so if you guys really are to go on and just like stuff that Tommy's in, then you probably will go on and like Dino Thunder. If you don't like Tommy, then more than likely you might just like the Dino Thunder episode that I just talked to you about, regardless of your hatred or disliking of Tommy or whatever you are to feel about this character. Regardless, I'm throwing it out there because of how much I care. Uh, the Wild West Rangers. Uh, it's a lot of fun to see most of the Rangers just ancestors in this thing. We even get to see Kimberly's ancestor in this two-parter. Uh, we get to see a command center of the past, so we can really figure out when exactly the command center was to go on to be an existing thing upon planet Earth. That's really interesting. Blue Ranger Gone Bad. It kind of feels similar to things that we've seen in the past, but also it eventually goes on and ends up being a fun episode. Also, Storybook Rangers also has Turkey Jerk in it. There is a lot of Thanksgiving Day puns, so it's to feel like a Thanksgiving Day thing without it just straight out saying it. We would go on and also have Skull, who grabs a book called Cooking for the Thanksgiving Feast or something like that. And so, yeah, so there is quite a bit of time where this feels like a Thanksgiving two-parter when it's actually not, sadly enough. So, with that said, I think it's about the time to push into full-on breakdown spoilers of it all and get everything out about the breakdown of this episode, because I think it's about that time, not Morphin time, but it's about that time to break down all these episodes, because I think it's about that time to do that song and dance yet again, because it is spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil these episodes. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite episode of season 2, or if you are to go on and like season 2 over season 1, state your reasoning. Go on and tell me how you are to feel about the second season, because ultimately you're like, okay, cool, like I think a lot of people will still go on and still like to hear what's going on in seasons coming up next, because if people are to really just care about certain specific episodes or something like that, yeah, like, anyways, comment whatever you like. If you want to comment nothing, that's completely okay, because at the end of the day, at least you viewed this, at least you decided to check any of this out, and maybe you were to go on and try to find some really good episodes. So with that said, let's pause here and let me get to my reset of what all was to be happening within these episodes. Let me pause here. I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, I couldn't scroll fast enough in time, so I was like, I'm just going to pause here because I need to. So, best man for the job. We make our way into Angel Grove High with Aisha, Kimberly, Billy, and Tommy making their way through the halls. They find out on a poster that there are student elections that are happening. So, student class president, whatever you want to say here. So, Billy goes on and eyes Tommy up and down, is like, you know what, Tommy? I think you would probably be a really good candidate for running for president. And Billy states this because he's like, well, hey, if you go on and you run for president, I want to be your campaign manager. And Tommy's like, and so Billy's like, well, hey, how about I go on and I even give you a slogan, best man for the job. And all of this is to go on and win Tommy over and be like, yeah, all right, let's do this. So Skull is to be the first one to also notice this poster and relays it to Bulk. For a quick moment, Skull has had some speculation of maybe he should, and then Bulk kind of starts starts talking and mentioned that, well, yeah, I definitely should try to go on and become class president, because if anything, if I become class president, that will reveal to me the identities of a certain group of people that I've said so often that yeah, guess what he's going to go and try to be president for? Yeah, because man, these schemes just don't make any cockamamie sense. It just doesn't. But regardless, just whatever, bulk, whatever. So Aisha and Kimberly at our lockers, and Aisha mentions to Kimberly, well, hey, maybe the best man for the job is actually a woman. What are we doing here? Uh, Kimberly goes on and is to hesitate at first because, like, well, like, but I don't really want to run against Tommy. Like, if anything, like, we're probably lovers, but if anything, you're gonna just tell me that we're gonna be just friends, right? Is Tommy still in the friend zone? Still? You would think at some point Tommy would have just broken it off. Like, couldn't have Tommy have ended up with any girl? But maybe that's but maybe just again Tommy was pining away for finally for them to just submit like in concreto that they are to be couple, but it just never happened. I don't know who is stringing who along, but like no, that's just this show for you. They play the will they won't they thing, and it just gets so annoying in this show. I was so happy in the later seasons of Power Rangers when we would have like the whole Fern relationship, and we would go on to find that Catherine and Tommy ended up together. We would go on to find that characters actually did end up together. Like, good God. Like, why not show some loving on the show? Good grief. Like, there was to be the possibility that Amelia and Ollie were going to end up together. Like, come on, show. Come on. Anyways, so Aisha convinces Kimberly, and so Kimberly faces Tommy and explains that she's going to go on, and she is going to run against Tommy. And Tommy's like, okay, that's fine. Like, you get it, I get it. Either way, like we're gonna have a fair competition, and yeah, like no mudslinging, no nothing. So Billy and Tommy shake hands, and it's kind of weird because Tommy's hand is like really high here, and then Kimberly's hand is like underneath. But anyways, so we now go to the Moon Palace. Zed is talking to Rita. It's like, well, yeah, nothing can spoil a relationship or friendship better than politics. I wouldn't know. So Rita and Zed are starting to realize that if Tommy and Kimberly are going to be running against one another, maybe at some point this will separate the two of them, and a plan starts to form. But then Zed turns to Rita. It's like, wait a minute, you're coming up with a plan? Like, you know what? Like, I don't think you should be coming up with a plan because, if anything, you're not going to be a better bad guy than me. So, because legitimately, you're not a guy. And Rita's like, well, hey, like, I'll show you what a woman can do. And Zed is like, well, all right then. You come up with your plan, and I'll come up with mine, which will never happen. We'll tune in next week to see what his plan is. It never will happen. So, as Zed walks off here, Rita goes on and states, like, well, hey, I already had a plan brewing. And Rita explains to Babu and Squad that she is to have this magic rope. Woo! A magic rope. Woo! It's all pink and weird looking. So, Rita goes on and hands Babu's Squad this magic rope. and has them go about doing her task for her. Goldar is a little upset because, of course, Rita is going on and coming up with a plan without Lord Zed being aware of it. And Rita, of course, does the usual cram it, 24 karat freak or whatever, and sends him on his way. So the next thing we go on and see here is Tommy and Kimberly at our park walking with one another as friends. So, God. So, Tommy is to say to Kimberly that he really likes her slogan. Kimberly's slogan is to go on and be win with Kim. As again, Tommy's slogan is be the best man for the job. So, the title of episode. So, Babu and Squad are in the bushes, whispering and talking to one another. And so they go on and they prepare the rope. Interestingly enough, we have Babu and Squat that are both touching the rope, and they're not affected by the rope whatsoever. But I guess it doesn't work on evil people. So, anyways, we go on and we have Babu and Squat, and they're taking the rope, and they're not dropping it on the ground until the Rangers get ever so close to it. No. Babu and Squat are tightening the rope so that way it's just hanging into the air. And you would honestly think that a rope of this size and color would definitively stick out to both Tommy and Kimberly, but maybe both Tommy and Kimberly are just so lost in one another's eyes that while they're walking, they're absolutely paying no attention to said rope. Tommy and Kimberly trip over the pink rope that should stand out like a sore thumb. Immediately when they get back up after tripping on the rope, their eyes are going a little bit more wider than they normally would. So at this point, we've gone on and have eyes that have glown red, green, blue. Now white. Is there any other color that I've forgotten? I'm sure there probably is. What is up with the needing to change the eye color so often? Why do they do that? What sense does it make? Someone please explain that to me. So, immediately when Tommy gets up, he tells Kimberly, "You stepped in my way." Kimberly says back, "Buster, you pushed me." And so Tommy's like, "Well, I guess you can't take a little competition, huh?" Competition? Comes out of nowhere, but still. Kimberly goes on and like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to beat you so badly in the election. Tommy's like, okay, all right. So now back at the Moon Palace, we have Goldar that is stooging off to, of course, Zed, explaining that Rita had come up with a plan already. Towards Zed is going on of like, okay, great, like now I'll just finish up my own plan, which will be nothing. His plan will be a fart in the air. That's what his plan will be. So now back at Angel Grove High, Tommy is going on and making his way to notice Kimberly's poster, but he's realizing that there's something a little bit off about it. He is to go on and realize that he wants to go on and make some critiques of Kimberly's poster. He goes on and is to take a pencil and start drawing on Kimberly's poster, giving her glasses, mustache and beard, and anything else that is to disfigure the picture. All of a sudden, Billy comes in and is to notice that all of a sudden Kimberly's poster is all of a sudden vandalized. Billy is to go on and ask Tommy, hey, did you notice anybody going on and adjusting Kimberly's poster? Not thinking at all it would be Tommy. And Tommy would be like, oh, you know what? Gee golly, yeah, I don't know. Right off. So, no. Tommy goes on and he takes the poster and he slaps it over Kimberly's like, yeah, that looks a little bit better now. So, Kimberly and Aisha appear from behind Tommy and Billy, and Kimberly goes on and tells Billy, "You still think that you're going to beat me?" And Tommy goes, "Laugh it up, second place." And Tommy goes on and finds some random extra, grabs him, and ends up asking him, "Hey, who are you going to vote for? You going to vote for me or are you going to vote for Kimberly?" And Kimberly goes on and gives uh, this guy a flyer and says, "Kim for the win," or win for Kim or whatever. So the extra just walks off. Just like, okay, there's nothing I can say here. So at least I'll get some screen time. This will be great. Uh, this student is also like, is he clean shaven? I question that. Also, he could be a teacher or something else. I have no idea. But either way, I'm not quite sure if how old this guy actually is. But if anything, no offense to the extra here. So, but I also thought that was hilarious. So Billy and Tommy leave here. Well, I think that Tommy leaves before Billy does. Kimberly goes on and is to look at Tommy's poster, and she makes some adjustments of herself. I don't know who exactly Dummy is, but sadly enough, when people are going to go to the ballot and write that in, nothing is going to happen with those votes. But anyways, Kimberly goes on the poster and says, "Don't vote for Dummy." And so Aisha goes on and points out that Kimberly has adjusted Kimberly's poster or Tommy's poster. It's like, why did you do that? And Kimberly states, well, he started it. So we now go on to have Skull with the megaphone. And he goes on to present the next president of Angel Grove. And Bulk walks down. This is to be not body shaming Bulk or anything like that. It's to really kind of set the scene here. So Bulk starts walking down here, and in all honesty, he looks just like Penguin from Batman Returns, Oswald Cobblepot. He looks just like him. And also in Batman Returns, the Penguin goes on and tries to go on and get elected for mayor. So it's very matchy with what I was trying to go with here. It wasn't a body shame Bulk because they're the same size or whatever. No, like honestly, it is to just feel that it's fairly similar in that way. So we have Bulk that is to go on and tell a crowd that is to be presenting around him that if he is to go on and become the president, that he will then reveal the true identity of the Power Rangers to everybody. And Skull goes on to tell Bulk, it's like, well, we don't even know who the Power Rangers are yet. And Bulk says, like, well, hey, these people don't know that we don't know that they don't know that we don't know. And we go into that. So we now have Rita. She's at the Moon Palace. And she has a letter. As you know, as much as if you've seen all these other things ever in the past of me talking about Power Rangers, whenever there is a letter that comes into fray, I start to shake a little. And I always reference a certain letter that was to be given to certain someone, and I think I've really beaten that dead horse far too often. So I'll leave it at that. If you guys don't know what I mean, then comments down below. But I always say it in a number of things, anyways. So, but yeah, when I see a letter in the show, I get weirded out. So Rita is to go on and have a letter for Tommy. And so Rita goes on and takes her wand and makes this letter disappear. Tommy and Billy go on and make their way to his locker, which the letter is to appear on it. Billy is to say that Tommy is beating Kimberly by 15%, which is just a fart in the wind. Immediately, also, when they are to talk anything about percentage in this show, I also start to wig out. Tommy ends up stating that he wants to beat Kimberly by 50%. How about just shooting for 20? Maybe 25? Kind of keep it just, just keep it light. Yeah, like going from 15 to 50, can you just see how a huge gap that is? But maybe Power Rangers don't know numbers now, do they? Anyways, Tommy goes on and makes it to his locker, reading the note fairly quickly, maybe not reading the note whatsoever, and handing it over to Billy for him to be the person that actually reads the letter. Tommy, that's a little lazy on your part. Come on, man. Like, you could have read the letter and not had Billy do the heavy lifting here. But I guess maybe that day, maybe Billy got paid more than you do. I don't know. For just reading words out loud. Maybe also Billy just needed something to do with this episode. I don't know. Anyways, so we also have to go on, and before Tommy leaves, he has to legitimately spell out the word win. I would have wished that he would have added a D at the end of everything to say that he wanted to win. I wanted to win! Yeah! But no, he really wants to win no matter what. So, Tommy leaves realizing that this note has some kind of answer. And so Billy bizarrely turns into Casey Kasem. At some point in Power Rangers Zero, he will go on and turn into Casey Kasem. If you guys don't know who Casey Kasem is, how dare you? How dare you not know who Casey Kasem is? What a delicious man. He was the guy that did the voice of Shaggy originally, and eventually did a Robin voice originally. Come on. Also, he was the guy on the radio who always had the letter things, and she writes, and he writes. Casey Kasem, freaking delicious man. Sadly enough, is no longer with us, but god dang it, Casey Kasem. Anyways, so, moving on. Billy goes on and starts reading the letter. Tommy, come to the park alone. I have information that will help destroy Kimberly. Destroy her. She will be destroyed. So, Billy goes on and he flaps the note back down. He's like, oh man, I have to do something. Billy doesn't realize that Tommy is going into the trap, and maybe that should have been the thing that he should have tried to stop Tommy from doing, but it's too late now. What exactly was Billy thinking about of trying to stop? I'm curious. Was it stop Tommy from leaving? Was it to, like, I'm trying to figure out because we never actually get that cleared up. Anyways, we have Tommy that makes his way to the park alone. And all of a sudden he is to have spring upon him Goldar and Putties. Goldar ends up saying, you have fallen into our trap, reckless ranger. And so Tommy ends up turning, and it's like, Goldar, I should have known. Really? How many times should you get lured into a trap before you should throw out the Goldar, I should have known? Yeah, anyways. So, Tommy goes on and quickly morphs here because he realizes he's already outnumbered. Also, he needs to morph so that way he has Saba at his side. Here's where Tommy goes on and he's fighting delicious. He goes on to be flying way up in the air as if some trampoline is to be nearby him. And, because obviously it was. And he goes on and he puts his feet over the Putty's shoulders. he goes on and does quite a bit of really interesting fight here. And we have him at one point he like kicks off a tree. It's pretty good. It's yum yum sauce. So we have at one point where the numbers game falls onto Tommy, and we have Goldar that is to say to Tommy, you don't look so good. Maybe it's time for retirement. So soon? If anything, they throw that same gem on him during like the entire season of Dino Thunder. And Tommy just comes back with like, well, I may be old, but I still got the moves. And that's kind of like Adam when Adam comes back and is like, it may be old school, but at least it still works or whatever. Like whatever he uses in Operation Overdrive, when eventually he comes back, because he does come back. Plus, also, I think a lot of people were like, oh my god, Adam wasn't really in Once and Always. He came back in Operation Overdrive. If only you guys would have spent time to watch Operation Overdrive just for those episodes, and that's all you needed to see. That's really all you probably needed to see. And someone I'll go on and I'll watch Operation Overdrive, and I'll regret that statement. I'm like, no, actually, Operation Overdrive is a decent season. Or maybe it'll be garbage. I have no idea. I haven't really seen that show. Maybe Ninja Steel or Super Ninja Steel will be great. Maybe. We'll find out at some point. So, we would go on to have the rest of the Rangers make their way to Kimberly to say that this campaign has gotten way out of hand. Maybe this is what Billy was talking about when he's like, okay, I have to do something. So, Kimberly is to state that she doesn't think there's anything wrong about what's going on, and it's starting to realize that Kim and Tommy are trying to win at all costs. So we go on to have the beeping of the communicator, and Rocky answers, because Rocky needs something to do. Zordon ends up alerting the Rangers that Tommy is in a crisis of the park, and they need to go on and help them out. So, of course, the Rangers are going to morph into action without looking anywhere of there being a single soul of person before they do so. And they all morph. We go on to have all the Rangers arrive at the park, and they're wondering where exactly Tommy is. And like, oh, there he is. Let's go. We have Tommy falling onto the ground, eating a putty boot, and we have Rocky coming to Tommy's aid. This part of the fight here, like, wait. Let's read it over here. So, this episode has some really funny fight stuff going on here. It's funny as well as also it's like, oh, cool, wow, this is different. So we have Rocky who slaps Tommy's shoulder and is to make sure he's okay. And then shortly thereafter, a putty ends up going on and taking out Rocky and have him go flying. And it's hilarious. We, on top of that, have Kimberly make her way to Rocky and then realize that, well, Kimberly needs to go on and help out Tommy. So that ends up having the bickering back and forth between both Tommy and Kimberly escalate. Kimberly stating to Tommy that he's useless and that Kimberly should probably handle things instead of Tommy probably getting hurt doing whatever he's doing. So eventually there is a putty that comes into fray here, and immediately he eats dirt. And Kimberly just goes on and just walks over him, and Tommy and Kimberly continue arguing. To where the putty's like looking at the frame and like, huh, really? Like, he looks directly at the camera. He breaks the fourth wall. Like, really? Like, that's how I'm treated? I quit. So, Kimberly and Tommy are bickering back and forth. Goldar is to be kind of waving his hands, and then, like, they're not paying him any attention. And, like, Goldar is kind of scratching his head. It gets to the point where Goldar is just so upset with how much invisible he is in front of the two of them that Goldar tries to grab Kimberly, and again, Kimberly's distracted with talking to Tommy. Finally, Goldar rips Kimberly away from Tommy, punches her in the face. Again, this fight is freaking awesome. And then Goldar has Tommy being grabbed by putties. And Goldar ends up telling Tommy, it's like, well, like, I'll take this, and he takes Saba away from Tommy. And this is the first time ever I have ever seen a villain steal a weapon from a Power Ranger out of all the episodes I've gone on to see. I'm like, oh my god, this is some exciting bullshit going right now. This is some interesting stuff. So, Tommy pleads with Goldar to not use Saba because he has no idea what he's doing, and Saba is to be pleading, hey, put me down, this isn't. I would probably have done a better Saba voice, but I couldn't be bothered. My throat is kind of getting thrashed right now anyways, because, all the Rangers start noticing that Goldar is to have Saba right now, and it is starting to become a chase for them to retrieve back Saba. The further and further Goldar is to seemingly run away, we do have Kimberly and Tommy that's at his weird monkey tail, and eventually what is to go on and happen is that, of course, the Rangers are not to get the Saba sword back. If anything, Kimberly and Tommy start bickering again, and that has the Rangers separate them, and Goldar ends up using the Saba sword against the team and starts blasting them, while Saba is like, he doesn't want to do this, but he has to, sadly enough. So, interesting enough also, with the gaining of the Saba sword, the villains also gain the White Tiger sword, which is actually really interesting, to be like, okay, so, like, the control of Tiger Zord also is to be... Well, I guess that does make a lot of sense, because if you think about it, like, the Saba sword ends up going into the Tiger Zord a lot of times. So, I guess it would make a lot of sense for Saba to be the controlling factor of the Tiger Zord. I guess that makes a lot of sense. Either way, Goldar could be given this Saba sword to Rita, and I'm sure Rita could put some spell on the sword and Tiger Zord and easily control it with her magical powers. Also, we eventually have the Firebird that is to eventually be remote controlled in one of these episodes. And, like, you would just think then that maybe there is a way for the villains to just remote control the Megazord at some point if they have the magical ability or whatever powerful enough to go on and just control the Megazords. It would kind of take one thing out of the Power Rangers arsenal, but anyways, pushing on here. So, Goldar is to blast the Rangers with a bag full of Saba. So, and we see the Rangers all spark as if it's 4th of July. The Rangers are to go on and realize that they need to retreat because Saba is to go on and overpower them with its blast. So the Power Rangers retreat to the command center. And Tommy has to relay that Goldar has Saba. And again, Kimberly and Tommy start bickering. They start to go on and they talk about, like, well, hey, he wouldn't have gotten away, he would have did that. And then we finally just have Billy, who's to turn to Zord, and I'm like, are Tommy and Kimberly under some spell? they're acting very unusual, but also like I'm up to here with this all back and forth. So Zordon is to go on and tell Alpha, it's like, well, hey, how about we run a diagnostic and see if they really are underneath, if they really are under some spell. So Alpha does go on and do a diagnostic, and Zordon will say, well, Billy, your conclusions are correct. Both Kimberly and both Tommy are under a spell. Conveniently, the spell will be broken because at the command center, they just have just all kinds of items. And come to find out, they will have these roses just off to the side here that will be a solution for Kimberly and Tommy's problem. They'll be the roses of love and friendship. So, at first, there's a hesitation of Kimberly and Billy going on and taking these roses. But once one person does go on and take them, of course, the other person doesn't hesitate because it's like, oh, well, since she took it, I'm going to take it. So both of them go on and take a big old whiff, and then they realize, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, what horrible things I had said. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh. I will never do anything to hurt you. Me neither. So Zordon is like, oh yeah, that's good and great and all. How about you go on and look at the viewing globe? Like, if anything, you do realize that the world is in danger right now. Like, get all this mushy crap out of the way. Come on. So Zordon pushes the Rangers to look at the viewing globe, realizing that Rita now has landed upon Earth, because the last time we had gone on and seen Rita on Earth, she had to make a bicycle ride there. Strange. But anyways, Rita is on Earth and she's to have the Saba sword in hand. And where is her bike? Rita goes on to eventually have the Saba sword, and they realize that the Tiger Zord will soon be called. So we have to realize that the Rangers are going to be forced to get back into action, but Tommy is going to have to hang back because Alpha is going to go on and need to put together some magnetic device so quickly Alpha's head is going to spin, because they go on and they realize that since Saba is to be mostly metal, that if anything, yeah, they should probably go on and have a magnetic device that pulls Saba back to Tommy. So the Rangers go on and they make their way back to the park. Rita goes on and gives them the whole stink face, and here's where Rita calls for the Tiger Zord to power up. So the Tiger Zord goes into battle mode, and immediately we have the Rangers that all call for their Thunder Megazord. The Thunder Megazord ends up going on and getting combined, and so Alpha ends up telling Tommy, it's like, well, I hope this magnet device works, and it only has a range of 10 yards. And so Tommy's like, well, I'll do my best. So it's kind of like the divining rod in the Wild Wild West Rangers episodes. Anyways, Tommy gets to the scene of the park, and since Rita and Goons are all distracted about what's going on with the Power Rangers, they're watching the Tiger Zord and Thunder Megazord duking it out. And honestly, the way that they put the Thunder Megazord and the Tiger Zord in the visuals of this scene here looks really surprisingly good. It's shockingly how good they try to figure out how to fit these things into the scene here. And I was like, man, this is good. So while the villains are all distracted, we have Tommy that goes on to realize how much he has to get behind them in a perfect spot, blah, 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 blah. And then he is to finally go on as Rita is to tell the Tigers or to finish them off. Tommy goes on and is to eventually get the device back from Rita, or get the Saba sword back from Rita. And both Saba and Tommy reunite. Honestly, when Tommy goes on and quickly shows the Saba sword here, the head part just looks a little wonky or a little weird, but regardless, it's the Saba sword. So Rita, of course, gets very upset that Tommy had outsmarted them, and Rita goes on and disappears. We realize that the Tiger Zord is no longer in control of Rita, so it is stopping to attack the Thunder Megazord. We also have here where the Tiger Megazord actually uses its sword to face off against the Thunder Megazord. Because at first there's punching going on, but then eventually both Thunder Megazord and Tiger Zord whip out their swords, and it actually is really like wow, like this is the only time that I've seen it where they actually use the tail of the Tiger Sword as a sword. Anyways, so we end up always ending every fight regardless of how everything is to play out, with the Thunder Megazord putting the blade back into the sheath, even if it doesn't make any sense. So to just keep doing that every single time. So we then go on to have Goldar, Babu, and Squat all giving Rita crap for her failing yet again. And Zed is like, well, yeah, I knew you'd fail. And then Rita is like, well, hey, what exactly was your plan? And that Zed has nothing to say, and he walks off. The next thing we see is Mr. Kaplan at the youth center putting on the student election results. You would have think that if they would have gone on and had results, it would have actually been at the school? Just my thought. So we have Kimberly, she does her speech, and Tommy does his. Tommy, when going up there, he goes on and mentions that Kimberly has really gone on to do her homework. And Tommy is to go on and state in his speech that he really believes in Kimberly. Well, he paraphrases that. He really goes on and he states that he'll be honestly voting for Kimberly and hopes everyone does that as well. So we'll go on and eventually have Bulk and Skull also make their way to make a speech. Skull ends up having like a plethora of different instruments just attached to his body, like he's a one-man band. And eventually he is to not notice that Bulk is to come from around him. And so Skull starts looking for Bulk as Bulk makes his way to the podium, and Bulk starts to make his speech. Eventually, Skull goes on to eventually bump into Mr. Kaplan, knocking him over, and then Skull is going to go on and do the exact same for Bulk. So Mr. Kaplan goes on and gets the election results. He reads them off, and he goes on to state that Kimberly was to be the one who is to have won. And we have Bulk that says he wants a recount, and Mr. Kaplan says, Bulk, you only had one vote on you. And Bulk would go on to be like, wait a minute, like, Skull, you didn't vote? And Skull's like, no, I voted for Kimberly. Like, her speech was really nice. So we go on to state that, yeah, I guess Kimberly was the best person for the job, and that ends this episode. We go into the Storybook Ranger episodes, this two-parter. We would go on to be right back to the Angel Grove High School book fair. We'd come to find Adam starting to thumb through some books. Also, so is Billy. Billy is to go on and find a book called Quantum Physics Can Be Fun. Let me say that again. Quantum physics can be fun. All right, yeah, okay. To each their own. So Billy is to go on and state that he's been looking for this book for months, and as all the Rangers walk off here, there's be a random extra that goes on to tell Aisha that there seems to also be a book that is to be about how to break into the fashion business. And Aisha's like, oh man, like, I definitely need that book. Catch you guys later. So again, we get to find something out about Aisha that she's interested in fashion business. So all the more reason for just interesting things about this character as she walks off. So Kimberly and Tommy are looking at books. It seems that Kimberly is to have a fascination with fairy tales. Kimberly is to state that she always wanted to be a princess and have a knight in a white horse save her one day. And Tommy states to Kimberly, it's like, well, hey, what about a white tiger? Ha 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 ha. I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you, Tommy. So, Kimberly sifts through all the books and finds Grumble the Magic Elf. He goes on to state that her dad used to read this to her, and Kimberly had known about this book hundreds and hundreds of times. It must have been one of her favorites. So, Tommy goes on and states, like, well, hey, you know what? If it's one of the books that really mean a lot to you, then you shall have it. So, Kimberly is to go on and thank Tommy for the book that he got her. And Kimberly ends up hugging Tommy. Now, back at the Moon Palace, we go on to have Babu and Squat making their way to Rita. Rita goes on to state, well, if it seems that the Pink Ranger loves fairy tales, doesn't she? Like perhaps she'd like to become part of one. Goldar immediately jumps into frame and is to tell Rita, it's like, well, hey, Lord Zed doesn't know what you're doing, and you need his permission. And we would again have Rita that is to tell Goldar to cram it. He calls him a freak. Freak. So, Rita goes on and tells Goldar that since Zed is taking a nap right now, which I'm like, wait a minute. What happened with Zed going on and getting that, like, 1,000-year recharge thing? Does he still sleep like the common person? I'm so confused. So, Goldar walks away because there's nothing that he can do. And so Rita goes on to state here that it's time for another chapter in history. And now that Rita will go on and be able to turn the pages and so on. There's a lot of book puns here. So we push on back to the book fair, and we have both Kimberly and Tommy meet up with Mrs. Appleby. Mrs. Appleby will go on and tell the Rangers here, like, well, hey, we definitely need to go on and get a lot of books here to sell, so that way the library gets a lot of money out of this, so on and so forth. So We have both Bulk and Skull that arrive at the book fair, and Bulk wants to get out of here as soon as possible because he hates lingering around with dweebs as well as also people that love books. Skull is there to try to find a gift for his mother, and eventually he goes on to find a book where it's to be how to cook a Thanksgiving feast. And Bulk ends up telling Skull, it's like, well, that's good that you're getting that for your mother because I've never really tasted her cooking. So Bulk comes on to find a book called Monster Making Made Easy. Bulk goes on to point this out to Skull and realizes, yeah, this is going to be the perfect book for us. We can go on and make our own monster and have it go against the Rangers, and we can go on and reveal their identities, blah, 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 blah. So, we now go to the Moon Palace, and Rita is to go on and realize that there's 3 Rangers at a park, that this will be the perfect time for her to use her wand, so that way she can have this book go flying and suck the Rangers into the book. So that's exactly what goes on and happens here. Tommy, Rocky, Kimberly are to go on and make their way into the park, and all of a sudden this book goes flying out of Kimberly's hands. Tommy and Rocky are a little confused about the care that Kimberly does have for this book because she has just chucked it in the trash. Kimberly is like, well, hey, I didn't mean to do that. It just flew out of my hands. So the 3 Rangers make it to the trash to try to retrieve the book. Once they go on and do that, they go flying into the book and they get sucked into the book. They go on and they look around and they're like, where are we? Where else would you be? Kimberly is to state that things are to start to look familiar to her, and Kimberly then goes on and realizes that they're sucked into the book. Tommy goes on and question maybe they should probably call for help. Tommy ends up using his communicator to call for Zordon. Nothing happens. We always realize that the Rangers are always to be excommunicated. They're always cut off. It always happens in so many instances. Plus, also, they're technically in a different world or a different dimension, pocket dimension, something like that. So, yeah, I'm sure their communicators would not work. So, the Rangers are to realize that, if anything, they're to be totally cut off here. And Rita's to realize that she couldn't have written this better. And with those 3 out of commission, the others will drop like flies. Back at the book, we have Tommy, Kimberly, and Rocky that are all just kind of standing around, not knowing exactly what to do. There is a question if they should morph or not, and Tommy ends up saying to Rocky, no, that's a really bad decision, because if anything, they're going to still be stuck in the book, and what good is morphing to do unless they're in some kind of crisis? So, all of a sudden, here is where Grumble the Magic Elf appears, and is to ask who exactly these people are and what are they doing here. And Kimberly realizes that this is Grumble and is to kind of relay his story. We'd come to find that Grumble is to have a wagon full of toys, and the whole goal of this wagon of toys is for Grumble to deliver it to all these orphaned children, and that will go on and break his curse. So, of him being grumpy, or him being an a-hole. So, Kimberly is to state that she had read this story 100 times, but maybe not good enough. So, the Rangers are trying to figure out, since they now have Kimberly telling them the story, that there could possibly be a way of getting out of this story by finishing it up. So, The Rangers are to realize that all they need to do is probably just follow Grumble, and he'll finish the story, and they'll get out. So now back with Aisha, Adam, and Billy here. They were supposed to meet up with the rest of the team, but they don't know where exactly they are. They're coming up with rationale for, like, well, maybe they're just nearby. Like, if anything, Adam says that, like, well, yeah, they said that they're going through the park, so if anything, it won't take them very long. So Aisha is going on and looking at Adam and Billy's books to ask them what exactly they're reading. Cut back to Zed. Zed is to go on and to have found out that Rita had come up with yet another plan and take it upon herself to see that through. Goldar ends up explaining to Zed that the Rangers are now to be trapped in a storybook, and Zed is like, well, that's good and great and all, but let's try to make things a little bit more interesting. Zed goes on and realizes that the whole part of the story is that the elf needs to deliver this toys, right? So, if anything, if Zed is to take out the toys, then Grumble will never finish the story. So the story will never end. So Zed realizes that he needs to go on and call out to Putties to have them take the toys from the story, so that way, again, the story never ends. So we have two rando people. They go on and they make their way to this trash can, and they find the book. They realize that this is a good opportunity for them to take this book and bring it to the book fair. As they're going on and taking the book and bringing it to the book fair, we see off in the distance Putties behind them. Grumble the elf is going on making his way through these woods, and we would consistently have the Rangers asking Grumble that they need his help, and Grumble's like, what do I look like, a tour guide? Go find the end of the book yourself. So eventually the Putties are to go on and find Grumble and the Rangers. They go on and they get ever so close to the wagon of toys, and we have Zed, who is to go on and be and growing very impatient. Why haven't the Putties gone on and retrieved these toys yet? He goes on to eventually use his visor to see that they're still waiting to get the toys, and Putties, and so Zed is going on telling Golar, it's like, good grief, like, we need a better grade of Putties, like, so finally the Putties are to be seen by the Rangers. The Rangers get into their fighting poses, and Putties go on and recapture the wagon of toys. So now there seems to be one way that this story does not end. So since Zed's plan does come to success, Rita and Zed meet with one another and realize that now this story that the Rangers are stuck in are more worth telling because it'll never end. Because it won't be to the Rangers' success. So, if anything, Rita goes on and tickles Zed, which we'll go on and see that happen yet again within these episodes. Because we have to just keep going back to saying certain things. So, now back with Bulk and Skull. Bulk is going and thumbing through the Monster Making Made Easy book, and it's to realize that he needs a 9-volt battery. He turns to Skull hoping that he is to have a 9-volt battery, which of course he doesn't, so Bulk has to go to his store to try to retrieve it. Bulk is hoping that Skull is going to be doing something while Bulk is gone, so Skull heavily procrastinates, and eventually he will go on to misplace the book, and he'll go on to instead start reading off the Thanksgiving Day feast book. So, now back with Aisha, Adam, and Rocky. Aisha is honestly getting very concerned that it's getting way too late now. We would go and have the Rangers feeling that, like, maybe we should check out the book fair and see if they're still there, and so they leave. Tommy, Kimberly, and Rocky are still back in the book, and they're all just kind of sitting around. Kimberly goes on to blame herself for them getting trapped in this book, and Tommy says, hey, don't blame yourself. If anything, blame Zed and Rita. If anything, they've gone on to realize again uh, that Grumble is not with them, and Grumble is probably going to be the only one that can figure something out. So, if anything, the Rangers start to try to find where Grumble exactly is. So they go off. The two randos go on and give Miss Appleby the Grumble the Magic Elf book back. Mrs. Appleby goes on and looks at it and starts to realize some fond memories of her reading this book in her past. Then Mrs. Appleby goes on and meets up with Aisha, Billy, and Adam, and they ask her if they've spotted the other Rangers, which of course, Miss Appleby says, like, I think that they left a while ago. So that's their answer. Aisha, Billy, and Adam make their way off to a spot to where they can use their communicator to call Tommy. There is no answer. They end up deciding that maybe it's about time for them to go on and make their way to Command Center to see what could have possibly happened. So, now back with Skull. Here's the thing here where we go on and we're seeing Skull, and he's looking all over the place for the Monster Made Easy book. Weirdly enough, we start to see Skull falling down the stairs, and then he's falling bizarrely up the stairs. Very unusual. I don't know what the heck is going on there. It's very weird. Skull goes on to eventually, again, find the Thanksgiving feast book and starts reading off of that. He goes on to slap the little lizard, and right underneath the lizard is the Monster Maker Made Easy book. So Skull starts reading, and he reads a random thing that is to be talked about wrapping legs in tinfoil to prevent from burning. So Billy, Aisha, and Adam make their way to the command center. Going on to, of course, ask where all the other Rangers are. And we, of course, have Zordon, who's to tell the Rangers that the other Rangers have fallen into a dangerous trap laid by Laura, Zed, and Rita. They're trying to go on and track the signal of where the Rangers are. Billy's hoping that maybe they can use their communicator signal to figure out where they are. And we then transition back with the Rangers inside the book. We would go on to find that Rocky, Tommy, and Kimberly are now in a very cold environment. I guess it's very rare for us to have Rangers in very cold environments, because eventually we'll come to find that their morphers quickly freeze. So, It seems that Kimberly is to realize where exactly in the book they are, but Kimberly feels that she doesn't want to divulge to the other guys where they are in the book because she realizes that there's a snow monster within this location. And shortly thereafter that, there is, of course, a snow monster to get revealed here. Kimberly goes on to state how this snow monster is very ugly and is to not like uninvited guests. So we go on to see that the snow monster is off in the distance away from the Rangers, but eventually he will get ever so closer. Eventually he'll go on and chuck rocks and all kinds of things. Back at the command center, Billy, Adam, and Aisha are able to find Rocky, Tommy, and Kimberly through the viewing globe. So at least there's that. At least they can see that. So the three Rangers look at the viewing globe, realizing that the other Rangers are in some kind of trouble. But they're, of course, not exactly knowing where they exactly are. Billy turns his Zordon on to ask if there is any way that they can pinpoint the other Ranger's location. Uh, and Zordon says that trying to do that is actually very difficult. But it seems that they're in some storybook. They won't know exactly what location of the book itself is. Uh, but if anything, Alpha is to realize that they need to rewrite that story and fast. So back in the book, Rocky, Tommy, and Kimberly are all going on to have a snow monster nearby them. So they decide if there is to ever be a crisis now, it'd be the best time to morph. So they all try to morph. As soon as they do, they whip out their morphers and they realize that every single one of them are all frozen, so they can't use them. Zed and Rita are realizing that the Rangers stuck in the book are going to definitely die, and there's no way out for them. And at this point, now that they know that the Rangers in the book are probably going to get killed, they should probably much more focus on the other Rangers that aren't in the book. So the Bulk and Skull are going on to make their way back to that shop. Or, well, Bulk has returned. Skull is already there. Bulk ends up noticing the book that Skull is reading off of, and it was the Thanksgiving Day feast or the Thanksgiving feast book, how to cook a Thanksgiving feast. And so once Bulk ends up going on to realize that they're only a few steps away from going on and creating a good enough monster to face off against the Power Rangers, Zed and Rita find out what exactly Bulk and Skull are doing. And considering both Rita and Zed need a monster anyways, they're just going to pull from Skull, or Bulk and Skull. So both Rita and Zed are going to go on and eventually put their wands together to make Bulk and Skull's monster a reality. Now back with the three Rangers in the book. Here's where we go on. We have the snow monster that is throwing all these rocks into the air, making an intimidating presence. So, The Rangers are realizing that they have to come up with a plan, and if they don't figure out something soon, this story is going to have an unhappy ending. We're back at the command center. We have Alpha that is stating this book will never be a bestseller. Maybe it will. You never know. Billy has to go on and explain why exactly the Rangers can't morph because their morphers are frozen. And they're trying to figure out ideas of like, well, hey, how can we get in this inside the book to help them? Uh, Billy is to state, well, he really has to go on and get his hands on the book and analyze it. Uh, and they realize that it'll probably take forever to try to find the book, as well as also by the time that they probably do go on and find the book, it'll probably be too late. Rocky, Tommy, and Kimberly are face to face with the snow monster. And what ends up happening is the snow is coming down a lot more harder. And the Rangers are going and say that they can't see anything. And we have the snow monster that goes on and says, it's an avalanche. And then we go to be continued. Oh, what's going to happen? Anyways, so Storybook Rangers Part 2. Back at the command center. We would go on to have the Rangers at the command center realize that they need to find that book. So Zordon is to state that he has located the book and it's at the book fair. Alpha is to realize that it probably could take hours to find this book, but it's time that they need to take. So Aisha, Adam, and Billy scavenge around through the book fair trying to find this book. And Grumble, the magic elf, is just off in the distance. We now have Tommy, Kimberly, and Rocky that are all stuck in a cave after the avalanche has happened. They had survived it conveniently. So, again, they're like, we have to get out of here. We have to plan something. Back with Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull are going on and hitting Noggle or hitting dials, thrusting buttons, hitting for no reason, and so here is where both Rita and both Zed will go on, and they will make Bulk and Skull's monster a real legitimate thing. And Bulk and Skull end up giving a Victor Frankenstein-like thing for a minute here, going on, live, my glorious creature, live. So, all of a sudden you end up seeing a lot of smoke here, a lot of fog, and we all of a sudden get to see also both Bulk and Skull's hair that just goes cattywampus. It looks really weird and goofy, as if they went through the Weird Science movie. And all of a sudden we have Turkey Jerk that appears from behind them. Both Bulk and Skull scream in fear and run off through this wall, and Turkey Jerk falls behind them, talking that evidently Bulk and Skull must be playing hide and seek, crashing through the wall as well. Aisha goes to the book fair and she's realizing that, like, I love reading, but this is getting a little ridiculous. We have Billy that goes on and he has to make a joke about one of these books, like, know your iguana. So they finally do get to the Grumble the Magic Elf book, and they realize as they touch the book that there's something off about it, that there's some kind of electricity or some kind of spark that comes from off this book to make them realize this must be the book that they need to look into. So eventually the book falls onto the ground and the Rangers are to make their way to opening the book and have this book be underneath this like table-like thing so they can see what's going on in secrecy. So We see Tommy, Kimberly, and Rocky all in this cave, and they're just like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" And so Aisha realizes that the team is okay. They're trapped in a cave now. So Kimberly has some suspicions that maybe since they're in a cave, that they may be going on and running out of air. I hope that Kimberly doesn't say that she is having suspicions that they may run out of air because of this book being a thing, and their suspicion of like. I hope that it's the cave thing and not like the book, because I think there's a number of characters that that exist here. I don't think they're gonna run out of air anytime soon. Anyways, I'm just thinking things through here. So Rocky ends up asking for the team to check their morphers, and they're all still frozen. Here's where Grumble ends up appearing, coming from upside down, and the Rangers end up asking Grumble what had happened to the snow monster. It seemed that the snow monster had gotten caught up in its own avalanche, so hey guys, let's go on and let's scramble out of here. So Grumble is stating here that he doesn't know exactly how to get his toys back. Uh, and Tommy states, like, well, hey, the original goal was to go on and get Grumble to have these toys and finish up the story at the end. But maybe we can go backwards in the story and maybe do some way of changing things so that way we can end the story that way, so the story ends quicker. And so, again, the Rangers are very much relying on Grumble to go backwards in the story, so that way they can go on and talk to Mondo the magician. Grumble ends up having this kind of crossroads here, where he's trying to figure out exactly where he had come from, and it takes him a while, but eventually he figures it out. We have Billy thumbing through the book. Billy is trying to figure out how to manipulate the molecular structure of a way to free the Rangers in technical terms here. So Zordon is to tell the Rangers to make their way to the viewing globe, as of course the turkey jerk is to be harassing both Bulk and Skull while them being caught into a tree. The Rangers, being aware that there's a monster afoot, they of course have to go on and realize that they can't focus on the book right now, and instead they have to focus on helping Bulk and Skull. So the Rangers all realize that they have to go on and they have to morph here. They make their way to Bulk and Skull, as we have just a number of like Thanksgiving jokes that are to be kind of thrusted in here. It's really fun, I feel. But anyways, we have Bulk and Skull in the background. They're like, "Oh my God, it's the Power Rangers! I knew it." So we have the Rangers facing off against Turkey Jerk, and what ends up happening here is the Turkey Jerk whips out a baster and blasts the Rangers, taking them out. We have a lot of times where just bizarrely the Rangers just falling over, and they're saying that they need a moment to rest while we roast this. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Uh, there's a lot of goofy bird puns here, but anyways, yeah, like I don't quite get why the Rangers are to go on and just be so easily defeated by this thing when they just get into action. But anyways, so back with the Rangers in the book, they make their way to Mondo, the magnificent magician, knock at your own risk. So the Rangers are at this Mondo's place for way too long. Believe me, they really milk this out. Uh, and so Grumble is kind of hesitant about going back to Mondo, but it's the only real solution of trying to end the story. Back with Lord, Zed, and Rita, uh, we have Zed that is asking Rita if there's a possibility that Mondo will go on and help out Grumble. And Rita tells Zed, it's like, no. Like, me and Mondo, we're really good friends. And there's no way that the Rangers are going to stop the story by talking to Mondo. It's just not going to happen. So eventually this is going to realize that Mondo the Magician eventually ends up becoming a monster in this episode, and the Rangers square off against him when in Megazord form by the end of this two-parter. So, back with the Rangers stuck in the book, the Rangers are pushing Grumble to make his way back to Mondo's door, and eventually they go on and they knock on the door. So back with the Rangers outside the book, the Rangers are going on and facing off against Turkey Jerk, and they're getting pummeled. We have Adam that goes on and whips out his battle axe because it's time to carve up this turkey. And we have Turkey Jerk that goes on and tells Adam that he's such a cut up. Adam goes on and states it's time to separate the men from the turkeys. Hey, that's foul play. Anyways, so again, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of back and forth banter here between the Rangers, but it's all just pun after pun after pun. So, and it's delicious. It really is. But anyways, it's kind of wasteful to just rattle them all off. So, oh, they also talk about I was going to offer you a side of cranberries. Side of cranberries. Anyways, so eventually the Rangers continue to get knocked down to the point where both Bulk and Skull are crying for the Power Rangers to get back up. And we have Skull that turns to Bulk. It's like, what would happen if the turkey does go on and beat the Power Rangers? Like, wouldn't it be our fault? And Bulk is telling Skull, it's like, the Power Rangers never lose. So what is the point of them trying to reveal the identity of the Power Rangers? Because eventually they'll go on and they will find out and in space, right? They will. Anyways, so, but by that time, I guess it really doesn't matter the identity of the Power Rangers, because eventually everyone will know and in space. So Adam comes up with a plan. So he's like, all right, how about all of us get together and surround him on all sides, and then there's a good chance that maybe we'll be able to hold up against him. Now back with the Rangers that are inside the book, deliciously inside the book, we would go on to possibly have a thought that maybe Mondo isn't at home. And now back with the Rangers outside the book. The Rangers are to go on and whip out the power cannon and blast away Turkey Jerk, sadly enough. So, finally, once Turkey Jerk is to be taken care of, both Bulk and Skull to realize, hey, isn't this great? We can go on and finally get out of this freaking tree. Skull gets out of the tree and falls, and Bulk goes on and falls on top of him. Right after the Rangers finish up the turkey jerk, they teleport out of there because, again, they're a little concerned that Bulk and Skull will try to rip off their masks and reveal who they are. Immediately when Bulk and Skull get back up, they're going to ask where exactly did they go. Now back with the Rangers inside the book. Mondo is to find the answer and says, "Who dares knock on my door and disturb my beauty sleep? What do you want from Mondo? We ask you to reverse the spell." And Mondo completely disagrees with it. And Kimberly and Kimberly and Tommy ask why, and Mondo says because it's not in the story. So he's not going to do it. So it's like, well, I guess that makes a lot of sense. So Tommy and Kimberly are hoping that maybe there's a way that they can talk to Mondo to reverse his decision. And Mondo completely disagrees. So as Billy, Aisha, and Adam make their way back to the command center, thumbing through the book to figure out where the Rangers are, they again realize what the story has entailed. That the story of how it is to finish up is to have Grumble have toys to be given to orphan children. So, if anything, they're asking how exactly they can get the Rangers out of this book, and Aisha comes up with an idea. She goes in and she redraws the toys back into the story, and that ends up becoming their answer. The wagon of toys is to go on and reappear here, and so the Rangers are to go on and grab the wagon and run off with it, so that way they can bring the toys to the orphans. Aisha, Adam, and Billy are to realize how well this worked, and it's like, all right, this is an excellent turn of events. So the Rangers and Grumble deliver all these toys to all the little girls and boys, and off in the distance we have Mondo, who is to appear off the distance here and there. Zed is upset because he realizes that he needs to stop the Rangers from stopping the story. So Rita goes on and realizes that maybe it's about time for them to go on and take Mondo, because of how powerful a magician he is, and take him out of the book to face off against the Rangers. So they take that as an idea. Going on, making our way back into the book, Grumble ends up going on to give a girl a stuffed lion. After that, it seems that his face is glowing. He's to go on to realize that he has this strange feeling, and it seems that the feeling could be happiness, or love, or whichever. So, shortly thereafter that, considering the kids are to be given toys, and the story is wrapping up, Rocky, Tommy, and Kimberly all disappear. Grumble goes on to want to tell the kids all about the story about Grumble, who had gone on to save the Power Rangers. We then would go on to find out that Tommy, Rocky, and Kimberly are to appear at the command center with the rest of the Rangers to have finally figured out to wrap up the story. Shortly thereafter that, they are to find out that Mondo, the magician, is to be set loose off of the storybook. And he's wreaking havoc on Angel Grove. The Rangers all morph, and they make their way to realize they need to get into their Megazords, so they call for them. the Thunder Megazord and Tigerzord face off against Mondo. For how this character should be a really intimidating presence, there isn't much, honestly, that he really goes against them with. And we end up also quickly getting out the Thunder Saber, to eventually slay him and take him out. Now back at the book fair. It seems that we're all going on and kind of setting up these books as if like this book fair has now wrapped up. We go on to have eventually Tommy being asked, like, well, hey, what was it like being in a book? And Tommy's like, well, I never really liked fairy tales, but this one's pretty exciting. And let's just hope that Zed and Rita never go on into the storytelling business ever again. So Mrs. Appleby comes in the frame here and mentions how there seem to have been a lot of books that were sold during this book fair. We also come into seeing both Bulk and Skull that are to want to donate their books back that they had bought. And eventually we go on to have Kimberly that hands both Bulk and Skull Grumble the Magic Elf to them and opens it. Grumble ends up going on and giving a little kind of goofy little thing that freaks out both Bulk and Skull, and they run off. Kimberly ends up making the joke about, I guess they're not really into reading, and credits roll. Wild Wild West Rangers Parts 1 and 2. Back to back, here we go. We come to find at the youth center that Tommy is to have gotten a cactus from his father in Arizona. It seems that Tommy is going to use this cactus as a gift to Kimberly because, again, Tommy is really good at giving gifts. But also, Tommy does go on and state that Kimberly is putting together some garden, and Kimberly really wants something special and unique, and Tommy is trying to give her something that is unique. So at least Tommy's going on and listening to her, and yeah, like, so at least he's trying to give her something that would mean a lot to her that she'll actually like. So Tommy finds where Kimberly is and eventually surprises her with this cactus. Kimberly goes on and says that Tommy's gift is incredible, and I'm sure they hug or something like that. But eventually, they all of a sudden realize that the cactus had disappeared, and there's a bit of slime that is to be left on the table. Slime is never a good sign here, so they are all to go on and realize that maybe there's going to be some trouble afoot, so they realize that they should right away make their way to the command center to teleport there. The only problem is, most of the Rangers make it there except for Kimberly. Kimberly is to be left at the youth center by the lockers and is to try and call out to Tommy or anybody by using her communicator. It doesn't work. All of a sudden, she gets sucked into Time Butthole. The Rangers are to all go on and make their way to the command center and ask where exactly Kimberly is. They explain that Kimberly had accidentally been sucked into the Time Butthole. And a time butthole? Yeah, a tear in fabric in time. So they go to the viewing globe to find out what exactly had happened, to realize that bizarrely the youth center now has a time butthole. Lord Zed is to go on and is to also notice about the time butthole, and that they think that there's a way that they can use this butthole to conquer the Earth. They go on and they take the cactus that they'd gone on to teleport to the Moon Palace, and they make him into Needle Nose. Uh, we go back to the command center, and they start to realize that the time butthole is starting to dissipate. And Tommy is a little upset because he realizes that uh, Kim could be lost somewhere in time and they don't even know where. They're trying to locate her, but it's going to go on and take quite a bit of time because, if anything, a time butthole randomly is to appear in the universe. Even though, in all honesty, shouldn't Alpha and Zordon know exactly where Kimberly is? Because they speak to her in the past. But anyways, so but maybe Alpha and Zordon's memory banks aren't that good. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, Kimberly in the past of 1880. Kimberly gets thrust out of the time butthole, and she falls to the ground. She gets back up, again using her communicator to call out for Zordon or Tommy. No one answers. Kimberly starts to make her way through these bushes and through this area to come to find Doc Skullovage and One-Eyed Bulk. The two of them are going on and waiting for a carriage to come along because eventually they'll find out that this carriage is to possibly be a payday for them. This payday will none other to be Abraham and Rocco, the ancestors of Adam and Rocky. And they will be the ones with this supposed payday horse, buggy, and carriage and what have you. So, as Kimberly is to go on and watch along of what's to transpire here, eventually what does happen is both Bulk and Skull are to thrust guns into the faces of Rocco and Abraham, and eventually a white stranger is to appear. Very Lone Ranger-esque style, but still, he appears. So, this white stranger is to go on to be none other than Tommy's ancestor. Tommy goes on to eventually scare away both Bulk and Skull after Bulk and Skull fire their guns and realize that their guns are fake or that they're firing blanks. So the white stranger goes on and scares both Doc Skullovage and One-Eyed Bulk off. And Tommy is to all of a sudden notice Kimberly and ask, "May I help you, miss?" Kimberly, of course, is to love to faint because she does that quite often, and so she does. And the next thing we go on to eventually see is Kimberly waking up next to a bunch of familiar faces, but none with the same names. So back at the command center. Billy is trying to locate Kimberly but cannot figure it out. If anything, they're going on and they're looking at the viewing globe. They realize that they have spotted Kimberly. And they realize that they need more power to be able to have a consistent way of seeing her. And Billy is going on and talking about a bunch of technical stuff about voltage surges and stuff like that. So here's where Kimberly does go on and wake at the juice saloon. She sees a number of familiar faces, but again, she has no idea who any of them are. Kimberly goes on and asks where Tommy is, and Abraham has no idea what Kimberly is talking about. The ancestor of Adam is to say that his name is Abraham and turns to Billy's ancestor and says he's William. Aisha's ancestor, and it's Miss Alicia. Rocky's ancestor is to be Rocco. And then we see the ancestor of Ernie, who is Ernest, and he is to own the juice saloon as he hands them all juices. Abraham goes on to explain to Kimberly that the white stranger had saved them, and after going on and having both Abraham and Rocky notice Kimberly fainting, the two of them decided to bring Kimberly along with them to have her be revived here. Miss Alicia goes on and asks Kimberly exactly where she had gotten her clothes. And guess what the answer is? Mama Mall, Mama Mall, Mall, Mall. And Miss Alicia is to say, "What's a mall?" And Kimberly says, "I think I need some air." Kimberly goes outside and eventually is to see a number of Angel Grove that is drastically different from what she's familiar with. Looking all around at the signs that say 1880, that say blacksmith, and a number of other things. As Kimberly continues to turn around, she gets more and more confused. It seems that Zed is to come up with a plan, as Golar is to agree how brilliant it is. And so, feasibly, I seem to realize that this plan could ultimately be that Goldar and Needlenose need to make their way to the time butthole and get to it before the time butthole closes, so that way the villains will go on and be able to take out time of the past before there could be Power Rangers in the present. So, now back at the command center. Billy is to finally figure out that he's found where Kimberly is. It seemed that they had found Kimberly a lot quicker than Alpha did with the whole 1700 thing. It's true. So Billy goes on to find out that Kimberly is in Angel Grove, but it's in 1880. It's in the Wild Wild West. Wild Wild West. So now the plan, after they figure out when she is, they have to figure out how they can get to where she is. And eventually, off of the viewing globe, they also notice the putties and Needlenose and Goldar are trying to make it to the time butthole. So Zordon has let the Rangers know that this is going on and that they need to stop them. So we have the Rangers all morph and they face off against Needlenose, Goldar, and Putties. There seems to be even more Putties that appear, and so it really feels like the numbers are starting to get stacked against the Rangers here. We go on and have one brief point where Tommy goes on and he puts his hand out and he grabs his wrist, and I'm like, don't give me flashbacks of the Return of the Green Ranger. Don't do that to me, Tommy. Just don't. So we have the Rangers starting to fight here, and eventually the Rangers are all taking down the Putties. Back in Kimberly's time, the Rangers, or Kimberly's friends' ancestors, go on and make their way to Kimberly to ask if she's all right. Kimberly says this really is 1880, and Aisha says, yeah, it's been that way all year. And Kimberly realizes she needs to sit down. One-Eyed Bulk and Doc Skulovich are going on and realizing that, hey, that strange girl is with the two guys with our payroll, and they're just standing there like sitting ducks. And so the Bulk and Skull are going to realize they're going to try again to try and now have the right guns to point at the Rangers here. So the Rangers all raise their hands, or the ancestors and Kimberly all raise their hands high. Now back with the actual Rangers facing off against buddies. The Rangers all start to realize that Goldar, Needlenose, they're all starting to head to the time butthole. Needlenose goes on and hits the Rangers all with spores to knock them down, paralyzing spores. So that's what gets both Goldar and gets both Needlenose to run off here. Here's the goofy point here. There is obviously some weird camera choices that they decide to do within these episodes. Like, we have at certain points where there's some weird camera angles, and this is definitely one of them. We have Tommy that's going on and says, "You won't get away with this, Goldar." And then we have a really close up goddamn face of Goldar here. And he's like, he looks like a goober. It looks stupid. Like, why was that a choice? Why was that a visual choice? It's just like, were they having fun and then realizing like, oh, we should have edited that out. So back with Kimberly and Ancestors, Doc Skolovich goes on and takes off Kimberly's communicator, realizing how interesting it looks, and eventually here's where we go on to eventually find that I think the communicator ends up giving them a jolt or something, and Bulk goes on and he ends up falling over into this vat of water. And then Bulk pulls him out of it. While it's the distraction of that, Adam goes on and grabs Doc Skolovich and pulls him to the jailhouse, as well as also Rocco doing the same thing. Billy ends up going on and giving Kimberly her bracelet back and says how impressive it looks. We go on to have Kimberly that says, "I think it's time we better talk." Kimberly goes on into the juice saloon and explains to the ancestors the whole story about how she's from the future, about how there's Power Rangers in the future, that they fight monsters, yada yada, everything in between. So I think we would also get to a point where the ancestors all go on and they eventually say to Kimberly, it's like, well, hey, you all know our names, but we don't know yours. And Kimberly will go on and say that her name is Calamity Kim, which is to be a reference of a episode before, which is in season 1, because this is season 2. So we would go on to have another extra that runs his way into the saloon to tell everybody to come quick. Eventually, there's going to be putties on horseback. There's eventually going to be Goldar, and there's going to eventually be Needlenose. Well, at least there'll be putties. At first. We have the Rangers going on and facing off against Needlenose and Goldar at their modern time. And both Needlenose and Goldar disappear to then go into the time butthole. The Rangers try to chase after Goldar and Needlenose, but they end up getting stuck at the youth center in modern time. The energy of the time hole has completely dispersed, and there's not much that they can do right now but make their way back to Zordon to come up with another plan. We go on to have Rita and Zed assuming that they're going to, of course, win here. And here is where, again, we have Rita going on and tickling Zed. And I'm just be like, okay, we're rinsing and repeating here, folks. Like, come on. Anyways, the Rangers make their way back to the command center. And Tommy ends up telling Zordon that they had blew it, that it's like Kimberly's trapped in the past forever. But there's never a time to give up hope. At this point, they're probably going to hope that Kimberly is going to just be. They're just going to hope that Kimberly is going to beat the monsters in their past. Also, they're kind of confused about why the timeline hasn't changed yet. And Billy at some point goes on and is to talk about how reasonably the reason why the timeline hasn't exactly changed is because right now things are actually a paradox. That Kimberly has not yet faced off against both Goldar and both Needlenose. So if anything, there is still a chance that that evil could triumph here. There still could be a chance that if anything, time could not have changed. So we make our way back to the past. Kimberly is noticing all the putties, and then Needlenose and Goldar. Once that is to go on and happen, we end up getting credits roll as Kimberly is to say, "Oh my gosh, what is next?" And then credits. Into part 2. We come to find again both Needlenose and Goldar are in the past, and we would have Kimberly that goes on to realize that she needs to make her way to stop Needlenose and Goldar from wreaking havoc upon the city. So Kimberly goes on to realize that she needs to do something. So what she's going to do is that she is going to morph. She morphs and hopes that Zordon and Alpha exist during this time period, and they do. She morphs and eventually realizes that since she can morph, that Zordon and Alpha do exist. So during this time period. So Kimberly is to go on to realize that the only thing that she can be left to do is to go back to the command center to retreat to come up with a better plan. Bulk and Skull Doc Skullovich and One Eye Bulk will be going on and making their way out of the jail cell. They'll be like easily bending through the bars and then making their way through escaping the jail cell, which is kind of funny. But then they'll also scream and cry as they always do. But anyways, so Kimberly makes her way to the command center, and Kimberly is to talk to Alpha and Zordon as if they know her, which they don't. So we would go on to eventually have Zordon figure out while talking to Kimberly what has happened. And Zordon realizes that this is a disturbance in the time stream. That, if anything, Kimberly was swept into a time butthole. And if anything, Kimberly is alerting both Zordon and Alpha that their time period's Angel Grove is on the run with Putties and Goldar. So Kimberly goes on to tell Alpha and Zordon here that she realizes that there was a green power coin, that there's nothing she can do about that, but there are uh, 5 other power coins that she can use. Of course, Alpha and Zordon say, well, yeah, like, you can use at least 4 of them, because if anything, you can't use the pink one, because too much pink power is dangerous. So they go on and they give Kimberly the power coins that she needs, and she knows exactly who to give them to. Kimberly rejoins Abraham, Miss Aisha, William, and Rocco, and they ask Kimberly if she is fine, which she says she is. They ask how exactly they're going to go on and get rid of these monsters, and Kimberly has the answer and pops open this case with power coins. The Rangers, back in modern time, are asking what they can possibly do to help out Kimberly if they can. The only thing that it seems that they're really having any ability to be able to do here is try and find some chronoton particles, whatever that is. To use certain chronoton particles, they can go on and be able to get this device that is to be able to see what's going on with Kimberly a lot better in the viewing globe. I just didn't understand what that was at all. So, the ancestors of Kimberly's best friends start to question whether or not they should go on and take these power coins, but Kimberly does convince them that they need to believe in themselves, that they need to do this, and that they need to stand between Lord Zed. And slowly but surely, all the ancestors realize that they're in, that they need to help. And Kimberly is like, I knew I can count on you guys. So Billy gets this particle device to put against the viewing globe so they can see the visuals of the past. So they can watch what is going on. Skullvich and Bulk are to go on and they're trying to figure out where exactly the Pink Stranger is. So they decide that they want to have this divining rod. I don't know why they have to go on and have this in here, but I guess it's just a weird, goofy joke. One-Eyed Bulk goes on and takes his divining rod, and he gets hugely pulled. Doc Silvage says to Bulk, why exactly is he going to go on and have this divining rod? If anything, divining rods just figure out where water is. And One-Eyed Bulk says, like, well, hey, a human is technically 90% water. And so Doc Silvage is like, okay. So One-Eyed Bulk goes on and gets pulled so hard by this divining rod that eventually he makes his way into, again, another vat of water and falls into it. And Doc Silvage ends up asking One-Eyed Bulk, how did it taste? And One-Eyed Bulk says ambrosia. And we're now back to the command center. They go on and and the team here goes on and makes jokes about Bulk and Skull's great-great-great-grandfathers. And that it is interesting how even Bulk and Skull's ancestors were trying to going on and find out who the Power Rangers were. So they finally figure out exactly where Kimberly is, and they find out that she's with their ancestors. Zordon goes on to explain who these people are to the Rangers so they can understand that they're their ancestors. And then we go back to Kimberly in 1980. Kimberly and ancestors are trying to look for Goldar and Needlenose to figure out where exactly they are. It's tough to spot them, but Kimberly says, hey, like, they're around here somewhere. Back to the command center. Billy, through the viewing globe, finds a putty in one of these spots, and so all the Rangers can do in modern day is to look and watch and see what happens. Back in 1880, Kimberly and ancestors go on to eventually get surrounded by putties. Eventually, Abraham, or no, it's Rocco. Rocco goes on and takes this pot and is to attack the putties with it, which is kind of interesting. We have Adam, or Abraham, and Miss Aisha that go on to eventually do some weird dance that eventually knocks down the putties. We have Billy, and Billy kind of does this weird kind of fighting thing where it's kind of more of like weird, goofy, accidental things going on here. And Kimberly goes on and does what she's known for. So we finally have Goldar that does appear, and so does the White Stranger. The White Stranger does start to come in and start to fight against these putties. White Stranger tips his hat and says, "Nice to see you again, ma'am." And we get to a point where there is to be one last putty left, and it knocks Kimberly over, and Tommy grabs her before she falls. Ooh. So Billy ends up telling Tommy that he thinks that he's figured out a way to get Kimberly back from the past. All they need to use is 3 communicators, and he thinks that he'll be able to get Kimberly to return. Finally, with Kimberly and ancestors to go on and realize that they're all gathered together. Finally, it's to a point to where Kimberly is to turn to the ancestors and say it's about that time, and White Stranger asks time for what? So they morph. We would go on and have no real morphing sequence, I guess. For this one, they just kind of pan right to the Rangers unmorphed because we really can't go on and spend the money or time to have a new morphing sequence for half of these things. So I guess they just don't do it at all. They could have done something. Anyways, it's too late for that. They could have just morphed, but they could have done any number of things. So all the Rangers, excluding Kimberly, go on and have nice new duds. Some of them have bandanas and so on and so forth. And so what ends up happening here is Tommy, or White Stranger, goes on and faces off against the putties. And the rest of the Rangers start to follow suit. After that, we would go on to have Needlenose that goes on to hit the White Stranger in the chest with a spore, and he goes down. Kimberly drags off the White Stranger off to the side, and then there is finally a draw. They end up whipping out their weapons, and they all end up blasting Needlenose and taking him out. The time butthole reappears, and Kimberly and Edson's ancestors go on to demorph here. Zed and Rita realize that they have lost yet again. Rita ends up hitting us with, "Oh, I have such a headache. It's been a while since we've heard that." Zed ends up complaining to Golar. It's like, "Well, hey, can you do anything?" Golar states the cactus is still alive, so it is still on Earth. So, if anything, maybe the cactus will have to be dealt with by the rest of the Rangers. The Rangers find out that the cactus is back into present time, and so the Rangers have to go on and deal with it now. Tommy and Rocky decide to morph so that way they can use their Zords against the cactus monster, Needle Nose. And Tommy, Adam, and Aisha are to be left behind because Billy, Adam, and Aisha are to be left behind because Billy is still working on the communicator device to try to get Kimberly back to present day. So Zed thrusts out his growing grenade and has the Needle Nose turn giant. So Rocky in his red Dragon Zord and Tommy in his white Tiger Zord face off against Needle Nose. They realize, unfortunately, Adam, Billy, and Aisha realize that the guys aren't powerful enough to face off against this Needle Nose alone, so they also need to all morph as well to then make their way into their Zords. I think there's like an arsenal thing where we have all the Zords that are on this like black plate thing, and they're called arsenal mode or something of that nature. Thunder Arsenal team. And what ends up happening here is that the Zords combine into the Tiger Zord to make the Mega Tiger Zord. And we have Kimberly's Firebird Sword. Here's where she's not really there, but they're going to just use the Zord remotely, as they go on and say. So, because they need the ultimate attack with a Firebird Zord kind of flies off of the Tiger Zord's arm and blasts, of course, Needle Nose here. So, Rita is, of course, upset because of her perfect plan, and back at the command center, they go on and they figure out a way to finally have the device work so that way Kimberly can return to the present. Kimberly goes on and is to be so relieved that she's back in present time. Now, back in 1880, we come to find that both Doc Skullovage and One Eye Bulk are in this prison garb, and they're going on and they're doing like some kind of community service of some kind. Ernest and White Stranger are going on and looking on, and realizing this is all in a day's work, and the ancestors Abraham, William, Miss Leisha, and Rocco are going on and asking if they're ever going to be Power Rangers ever again, and what was the most exciting part, and to think that that Calamity Kim is going on and fighting against all these monsters in the future. And the White Stranger's going on of like, yeah, she's something, all right. We have all the ancestors. They go on and they clink all these glasses together. The White Stranger gets on his horse and starts running off. All of a sudden, off the distance, we end up seeing Kimberly's ancestor. Tommy gets on his horse, gives a good old pullback, and we roll credits. Now we're off to the very last episode, which is to be Blue Ranger Goes Bad. We come to find that the Rangers are in Mrs. Binks, or Brinks. I want to say Binks. At some point, I'll get that answer anyways. Art class. We come to find that Billy is to have this, what looks like a mirror to a lot of people, but it's a disc. It's a hologram. And a lot of people in the background, we have Kimberly painting something. We have Tommy sculpting something, which is supposed to be a vase, but I have no idea. We have Billy that starts to hand around his hologram, his disc, and people start to look at it. A girl named Violet is to also look at Billy's disc and is to say how beautiful it is. Violet wants Billy to go on and look at her project, of which he will, as Mrs. Binks, there it is, goes on to make her way to Vulcan Skull's sculpture, what is to be this random mess of, I have no idea what it is. But Vulcan Skull says it's to be a statue of the Power Rangers or something of that nature, as they rip off one of the heads and do something with it. So Violet reveals to Billy what her project was, and it's Billy's statue. They all look at it and say, wow, that's excellent. And they say, it certainly does, I guess. So Mrs. Binks goes on to tell the students that they are all to go on and have their projects need to be handed in soon. And Violet ends up asking Billy if he's going to be heading to the gym. I didn't know there was a gym here, but I guess there is. And Billy says, oh, sure, yeah, why not? So Kimberly goes on and tells the rest of the gang that they're all heading to the juice bar, and so they leave. Goldar and Squat, I don't know if it's Babu there, but if anything, I'm just seeing Goldar and Squat. They make their way to Mrs. Binks' class. They go on to find Billy's statue, and they decide that they're wanting to go on and put a personal touch on this statue themselves. This personal touch is to go on and let me pause here for a second. The personal touch is to have Zed, who is to try to remember some incantation. And it gets to the point where Rita just grabs Zed's wand from him and is to just make Billy into, or make the statue of Billy into a real boy, Pinocchio style. So Goldar ends up asking evil Billy, or fake Billy, what do you say, humans? And then he says silence to Squat. Billy, or fake Billy, goes on to say, now I shall capture the real Blue Ranger and put him to sleep forever. And so Goldar is like, well, yeah, you will take his place, and together we will destroy the Power Rangers. Blah, blah, blah. So, back with the actual Rangers. We go on to have Tommy with this face. He goes on to say, that he needs to make this a lot more taller to make it more human, or maybe eventually he'll go on and make it more alien. I'm not quite sure. Billy, Adam, and Kimberly are all going on and talking about, hey, that Violet, it seems to have a crush on you. And Kimberly says to Billy, it's like, well, yeah, Violet's really nice. So Billy's like, well, yeah, maybe I should ask her to the movies. And so all of a sudden, we do have putties that arrive here to kind of break up this whole dating idea of things. So while the putties are going on and fighting with the Rangers, here's where these vines come in and grab Billy and have him disappear during the fight. Eventually, when all the Rangers take out all the putties, they turn and they realize, where is Billy? Billy is to go on to be in the dark dimension to be held by a projector that has a beam going that is going to get him stuck in the dark dimension. Goldar ends up asking if Billy's missing something because Billy does not have his communicator on his hand. They do it this way because, of course, Goldar is going to take the communicator and give it to the fake Billy and also give fake Billy Billy's backpack. So that way they look the same. Goldar ends up telling fake Billy to earn the Rangers' trust and take their communicators and morphers so they'll be defenseless. So that way they'll be out of they'll be cut off from Zordon, and that they'll have no way of being able uh, to to do anything. I'm very hugely paraphrasing here, but anyways, I just want to get this done. I'm almost over. I'm almost done. So Billy goes on and does threats. You'll never get away with this, and all kinds of other things. Billy states to fake Billy, no one's gonna ever believe that you're me. They will for a while. So Goldar ends up telling Billy that, hey, do you see that fog coming in? It's the fog of Morpheus that causes eternal sleep because we can't really kill people in the show. We can kill monsters, but we can't kill people. We can wipe out monsters all to live long, but if anything, yeah, we have to eternal sleep people. So Billy is to regain his presence with the rest of the Rangers. This is fake Billy. Fake Billy's is so the Rangers all go on and ask Billy, "Hey, where were you?" And he's like, "Well, hey, I got sidetracked by some putties, and so now here I am." So they're like, "Okay, cool." So let me just pause here for a second. All right, I got a little problem. My phone was just like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do anything for you right now." So Zed and Rita were to be said by Adam. It's like, well, yeah, they must be in a bad mood. And, like, if anything, they're worried that the putties will go on and escalate to something else. So the Rangers are like, well, maybe we should probably contact Zordon. Tommy goes on and he is to call for Zordon. And Tommy goes on and asks if Zordon if there's anything unusual that they should be concerned about. And Zordon is like, well, I have to gather more information, but if anything, just kind of stay alert. So Kimberly goes on to tell Billy, it's like, well, hey, like, we're gonna be going to the gym. Hey, Billy, like, Violet is gonna be there, and Billy's like Violet isn't even my type. And then he walks off. He's like, I'm just going to lift weights. What a difference Billy is. Just wanted to lift weights. Uh, and they even point that out. It's like, did Billy bump his head during the fight? Like, so back of the youth center that I guess is the gym. I don't quite get it. Billy is going on and he's really pounding the weights. He's really bench pressing. He's really having a good old time. And he's having absolutely no spotter. But again, very rarely do I even have a spotter because it is what it is. So all the Rangers are watching Billy bench press here, and they're very impressed. Is like, where does he get the energy? Where like how is he doing that? Oh my god! So everybody's oohing and eyeing over Billy for some goofy reason, and so we uh, we eventually have Billy that makes his way to the juice bar to get something to drink, and Violet is to continue to say, "Hey, hi, Billy. Hey, Billy, 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 Billy," Billy. And Billy completely ignores her, and Tommy and Kimberly grab Billy. It's like, well, hey, weren't you going to go on and ask her out? Like you said before that you're interested in her. And Billy says, like, well, I think there's been a mistake. Like, uh, so Billy goes on and says to the Rangers, hey, I think I'm going to go on and need all your communicators because Zordon had told me that we should make an adjustment on them. So, hey, guys, give me all your communicators because I'm going to need uh, to fix them. It seems that everybody is so willing to give up their communicators except for Tommy. And when Billy does go on and get all the communicators and put it in his sack, he also goes on and takes all the morphers without them noticing. Billy, instead of quickly going on and fixing any of the communicators, he goes on and goes right back to lifting more weights. Kimberly turns to the rest of the team and says to them, Billy's acting really strange, unlike him. And suspicions are starting to form. We have Billy that is to be captured in his cell, just kind of waiting for the fog to get ever so much more closer to his face. So, back with the team here. They're all going on, and one by one, all having their projects here. Tommy is to have his vase, and he's holding on to it, and Aisha is giving Tommy some praise about his face, and Tommy is telling Aisha, well, yeah, you should look at the hologram that Billy made. So Kimberly is like, well, yeah, Billy, where is your hologram? Where is your disc? Uh, and Billy's like, well, yeah, I misplaced it. And again, that ends up having Tommy be very suspicious. So Tommy ends up going on and getting to his communicator and calling Zordon. Tommy ends up asking Zordon, of course, was it to have been Billy to have asked you about the whole adjustment of communicators? Zordon Zordon says here that there is no communication between him and Billy of that nature, so there's something afoot. So we would go on to have Tommy that makes his way to Kimberly stating what Zordon had told him. So Kimberly, of course, really good friends with Billy, is to realize, like, well, why is it that he would go on and lie to us? That seems a little weird. So Rita Zed and Goldar are starting to realize the jig is afoot, that they're starting to figure things out, and they now have to realize that it's about that time for Putties and Goldar to go on and make their way down so that way they can distract the Rangers. Kimberly makes her way to Billy and asks if she can see her communicator. And Billy's like, "What? Why?" And Kimberly's like, "Well, I just want to check to just ask Laurent if he knows anything yet, if there's any alerts, if there is anything going on." And Billy states like, "Well, I haven't adjusted them yet." So here is where Goldar and Putties appear, and all of a sudden, Billy is in between both Rangers and Goldar and Putties, but Billy is going on and facing against the Rangers. So Goldar is to say to the Rangers, "Isn't this usually the time that you have to say that it's Morphin time? Isn't that usually the phrase?" And the Rangers all realize that Billy has their morphers, and there's nothing they can do. The Rangers all start to try and face off against Goldar and the Putties, and eventually there's a keep away going on with this backpack. Eventually, the backpack goes into the tree, and the Rangers are having to go on and face off uh, against the monsters without it. That's what happened. Oh, yeah. So we go on and we have Billy. Billy is saying B is the equation of the radius of the confines of theta and over 2, and the radius of the disk of the is equal to the disk. The disk. Billy goes on and realizes he still has that hologram in his pocket. Billy whips it out, realizing that he can use it to get himself out of this trap. Rocky faces off against Goldar, and Aisha is trying to go on and get to the backpack. Weirdly enough, Aisha turns back to the team and says, "We need our morphers." That was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Could you have stated anything more obvious, Aisha? I apologize, but it's true. Uh, Jesus. So here's where Billy goes on and uses his hologram disc to use the ray to deflect itself to have the projector of the beam stop firing off. And once the beam stops and Billy can roam around free within the dark dimension, Alpha and Zordon realize that Billy's in the dark dimension and they teleport him out of there. So again, we're back with the Rangers facing off against the Putties. Rocky is facing off against the Putties. Adam and Rocky are, or Adam and Tommy are facing the Putties off together. After the Rangers have taken all the Putties, they're wondering where exactly is Billy. Zed is a little upset at this point because he's sitting on his throne, realizing he doesn't want to see what's all going on anymore because he realizes that he's probably going to lose. Rita convinces him to come off of his throne to check out what's happening anyways. So he does. He listens to his wife. So we go on to have Zed that uses his wand to eventually make Vase Face, which is to have been Tommy's vase turned into a monster. So Vase Face goes on and blasts from its unusual eyes to hit the Rangers here. Tommy mentions to Aisha that he wished he would have made a painting instead of a vase instead. So here's a scene here where Billy frees himself, and then Alpha teleports Billy out of the thing. So I've kind of restated what I've already stated, but this is a scene where this happens. God, I'm just like, man, this very last episode is very hard. Of course it is, because it's the easiest. It's the last thing I have to do. So shortly thereafter that, we have Billy that goes on to appear right around where the rest of the Rangers are. Fake Billy ends up trying to get the morphers and the communicator backpack out of the tree, and it falls off. Billy is to go on and get the backpack, throw it to Tommy, and Billy is to have also gotten his morpher because he of course is to need to morph to face off against his evil doppelganger. Fake Billy is to grab onto Billy, and the two of them are wrestling here. Billy morphs, and both simultaneous fake Billy and real Billy morph at the same time, facing off as one another. They are very confused with who the real Billy and who the fake Billy is, and Billy is to tell the Rangers that, hey, don't trust this guy, because if anything, he'll say anything to trick you. Tommy ends up using his communicator to call Zordon, hoping that there's a way they can identify the real Billy. Kimberly goes on to realize that she had found Billy's disc. Kimberly goes on and waves the disc in the air, asking Billy and fake Billy, "Hey, which one of you knows what this thing is?" And we have fake Billy that says, "I don't know, a mirror?" And immediately, that's the wrong answer. They immediately figure out who the fake Billy is, and the rest of the Rangers all morph to go against fake Billy. They all whip out their blade blasters and blast the crap out of fake Billy. They murder Billy. How dare you? They kill Billy, you bastards! So, Billy is to go on and be destroyed, and then all of a sudden we come to find that Vase Face is to get a growing grenade and grow massive, because Zed is to be chucking it out there. So, they all call for their Zords, both White Tiger and Thunder Megazord. We go on to have Vase Face that ends up using this like tethering thing that ends up grabbing the Thunder Megazord, and it's actually a pretty good light show in all honesty, but things are going to end up again running pretty short here as we go on and have Thunder Saber and Ultimate Attack and wipes out Vase Face. The next thing we go on and see here is Billy has made his way to Violet, and Billy is to apologize to Violet for the way that he's been acting, and also Billy is to go on and ask Violet out if she wants to just to go for a movie sometime. Yeah, that's what she says. That's what he says here. I think there's also a lot of back and forth here, but I'm trying to cut to the quick here. Violet agrees to dating Billy, and Billy says, "Great. Eventually, she'll disappear, and we'll never see her forever." But man, is Violet some hot, juicy yeah. Man, is that Violet? Yeah, oddly enough, I didn't go on and have anything about saying about how like they should protect Violet at all costs and this and that. Violet wasn't in danger, and then also Violet is a little bit creepy. Is a little bit questionable creepy there. So I don't know about that. Again, like if a woman made a statue of me, I'd be like, there's something there. But that is also kind of fairly creepy and weird. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel exactly about Violet. I want to say that she's a good person at heart, and and all kind of other nice things. Kimberly says that Violet is a nice person, and I trust her opinion. But then again, also I'm just like, maybe I'll like Violet at a distance. So, anyways, we have Mrs. Binks that is to go on and want the students to go and showcase all of their art, their finished projects. So Kimberly goes on and represents the painting of all of her friends together, and that's a really nice photo. And then we go on and have Bulk and Skull that are going on and showing what their project was, and their project is to be completely different than what it was when it was originally, because they decided that they were going to go on and just borrow off of someone else's project and use it as theirs, which is kind of just cheating. But anyways, they allowed it for some weird reason. So they revealed what the project was, and it was Billy as a Gold Ranger. Just that kind of upsets me in some ways, because we have Zeo. There is a possibility that Billy could have been the Gold Ranger in Zeo, but that's not gonna ever happen now, is it? Uh, like, I can say that it is great to have brought back Jason. That was good. Like, yeah, like to have Jason come back, like, or Austin St. John, like, there's nothing wrong about that. If anything, yeah, like if it's not going to be Billy, then Jason would have been a good choice. Uh, I would have also stated that there could have been some other candidates, Shauna, girl from 1700 girl, uh, Pop Pop, anyone else. But no, Jason is a good choice. Could have been Shauna. Anyways, so we go on here uh and Bulk and Skull cannot believe that Billy would probably be a Power Ranger, but Violet is to go on and believe that if anybody could be a Power Ranger, it should be Billy. Maybe Violet has read the script this day. So Bulk goes on and points to Violet and says that she's out of her mind, and that sounds ridiculous. And as Bulk and Skull storm off, Tommy is to have his fist pound in happiness for Bulk and Skull to never ever think that the Rangers are to eventually go on and be Power Rangers, especially if they're convinced that Billy is never going to be one, which he is. So we roll credits, we get back out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Yeah, I will end up going on, and I will I will be able to do a top 10 best story arc episode thing at the end of season 3 of Mighty Morphin. That's what I plan to do. That's what I hope to do. That's what I hope I'm going to be able to accomplish. So, yeah, I hope that is going to happen. I really tried to rush this a lot because I have been trying for 2 days to do this, as well as also my voice is starting to get very thrashed by me continuing to try to do this video, and every time just failing somewhere or having problems doing it. So I apologize if I wasn't as in detail in certain parts of this, but I also really just wanted to get this effing done, because I'm like, good God, like my voice is to just be like at this point. So I'm just trying to just finally get this done so I can put this out at least. So there could be another video. Yeah, there were times where I had also done another cut of this where the video was probably a lot longer. And when looking back at that video, I was so tired doing that at that point that like there was sometimes where I wasn't really coherent and I was trying to just rush to get it done and it just didn't come off good. So I decided to do this. So I'm trying to do something better than or I'm trying as best as I can to try to do something shorter, better, and something that doesn't look like I'm I have no idea what I'm saying anymore. So at least I try to do this to put this out there to have it look better than what I would have almost originally have put out originally. So I'm sorry if these videos are going on and taking a lot longer than anticipated. I am to try as well as also to have a number of things happen in my life. Right now, I'm very busy, but I'm trying to carve up some time to do these videos, as well as also some are pretty challenging to accomplish as well. But boohoo on me. I'm throwing out all the violins that I possibly can. Uh, so thank you for watching this, however length that you are going to go on and do it for. I obviously have certain people that are to have certain opinions about uh, the ways in which that these videos are to be put together and done. Uh, but for me, this is just how I like doing them. If anything, I just oddly feel satisfied by covering all my bases, as well as also I am to feasibly uh, just like I don't know. I've just been doing this for too long, and to try to shorten it up or to try to like I don't know. It's just it is what it is. If you guys don't like it, then I'm sorry. Like, watch the video however you want to watch it. I usually give people a 10 to 20 minute window in the very early stages of every video. Like, hey man, like you can stick around as long as that, and then you can shuffle off after that. Like I try as best I can to give people a number of outs. Like the only thing that I probably think that I should probably do when it comes down to specifically these reviews, I think it would be a lot better off if I probably did them in chapters so people can understand what's all going on. But I don't really quite understand the chapter parts of doing videos right now, and feasibly, uh, yeah, maybe at some point somebody will do the whole chapter thing, but that might not be me. I don't know. Maybe when this actually does be successful at some point. But yeah, I have no idea how to work the chapter things. That's like a brand new feature that was on YouTube that I don't know. Feasibly, during the time of which that I started YouTube, a number of things have been added onto YouTube that I don't know every bit of them. And maybe at some point I should use all of those devices, but I don't know. I feel that I want to try as best as possible to not like to just put out a video and then just just be done. Um, because of how much work I feel that I put into them. But like regardless, again, that's violins. That's griping, and I apologize. But thank you for watching this. I do appreciate it. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.